Welcome to our Indie-stry chat. The members of Bloodhound Pix and an occasional guest give their no BS experiences with current aspects of the industry. We at Bloodhound Pix owe a lot to how we got started and our promotion because of the site Ginger Nuts of Horror, and more specifically the site's creator, Jim Mcleod. Now, we've spoken with Jim through email or social media or chat for several years now, as we've been writing for his site and kind of having this online community relationship like many of us in the horror community do. But this is the first time that I actually got to sit down and chat with him and interview him, and we got to kind of talk about what it's like owning an independent horror review site in the modern age and all the things that come with it. So I had a lot of fun. It was great finally officially meeting Jim, and I hope you enjoy. Hey Jim, thank you so much for joining me. It's been a long time coming, so it's great to finally chat with you.
Hey, my pleasure, Craig. Yeah, really looking forward to this chat.
Yeah, so before we kind of get into everything, if you want to talk about kind of how you got started, your upbringing, and moving into then how you ended up creating the site Ginger Nuts of Horror.
Oh, jeez, it's a long story. I was sort of born and raised in St Andrews, the home of golf, a very tiny, well, certainly when I was growing up, a much small town with one tiny little bookshop that had one shelf of horror books. But to be honest, I never really checked it out. It was just, I had a paper round, and for some reason one day there was a copy of James Herbert's The Fog that had the cover ripped off lying in the garden of one of the houses that I delivered to. So, picked that up, read that, absolutely loved it. I must have been 12, 13 at the time. Oh. And then quickly after reading that, went up to the bookshop. It was only tell them to me clearly, so 81, 82 in a very small backwoods little town. Those sort of books were seen as the devil's work. So I had to convince parents to go and buy the books for me. And I mean, they had the whole shelf of James Herbert and Brian Lumley. I devoured them. And that was basically that. I really couldn't read anything else because there was nowhere else to buy it. It wasn't in the days of the internet. So, but then I found out that you could actually go up and speak to the bookseller. And they had this, in those days, it was like a massive catalogue of all the books, a physical catalogue, so you could go through to another James Herbert, so you go through it. But even then, you were limited with what you could buy because you had to know who the author was. You couldn't just go and say, I want another horror book, because it wasn't that advanced. You could only sort of go through it. Basically, like a telephone book was probably the best way to describe it. So basically that's what first ignited my love for horror, and it was quite limited at the start because of basically where I lived and the fact that there was no outlet and no avenues for discovering new stuff. The local news agents and shops wouldn't stock things like, I don't even know if I want to go there, Fangoria and Scream and stuff like that. I do vaguely remember the Parkside magazine, but that must have been closer when I was 18, 19, I think. So that was it, and so I devoured what I could. Then I went to university. I was in a much bigger city, and they actually had a small comic bookshop in this weird sort of indoor market at the top of a shopping centre, and they had all these books from America, and that's really where I started to devour horror. I just went on for a few years, and then the actual setting up of the site, that's just another very weird sort of long story. I'd broken a bone in my hand 7 years prior to knowing that I'd broken the bone in my hand. And by the time I realised that I'd had this massive surgery where I had to remove basically all the bones from my hand in the first sort of 2 inches of the radius and ulnar, fuse it together, give myself a bone graft. So I was off work for about 12, 14 weeks.
Oh, wow.
And I was a member of this, I think it was called the British Horror Novels Forum, back in the days before. I don't even think MySpace was on the go there, certainly not Facebook. And there's a lot of British horror authors there, and I joined that and started chatting away to them. And it was really Nico suggested that I do these weird, never-ending sort of interviews on the forum where anyone could sort of jump in and join in and take part. And these were just massive pages upon pages of me chatting away to all these British authors. And must have been a good few months of that. I think Willie suggested I should just do that myself, set up my own site and do it. So I set it up as a joke. I had no intention of it ever being serious or becoming anything. And, God, 12, 13 years later, here I am now with the Ginger Nuts of Horror. And even then, the name was set up as a joke. Yeah. It was, I often wonder, should I have slightly more, would the site be taken more seriously and maybe have bigger reach if it had a serious name? But I don't know. I think it's fine where it is, to be honest.
I mean, I think it helps kind of set things apart. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly got its own brand. I mean, certainly now with the Tartan being released this week, and it's certainly got its own unique identity now out there.
So that actually kind of brings up a great question about the site, and that something I always, admired, especially, that I've been able to write for the site, and we've kind of worked together over several years now. I can't even remember how long, but is that you're very much about keeping it purely independent, and I kind of love to hear the reasons why for that. And
I think as soon as you bring money into it, it muddies the water. If you've got a review site that is there to make money, or is there as a sort of subsidiary arm of a company where you're basically trying to sell the product that you're reviewing, it brings into question the reviews. And I mean, I know people have written for trade magazines and whatnot, and I know a lot of these magazines have a rule where you're not allowed to give anything less than a 3-star review to anybody that has a major advertising sort of budget within the magazine. And if you're going to do that, there's just no point doing it. If you're going to review books and then sell them on, via, I don't know, things, book boxes or through an independent publisher and all that, then just don't do it, because you're not reviewing books. You're basically laying the groundwork for you to make money, and it's not about that. It's about being honest. And as soon as you bring money into it, you just can't be honest. I don't care what anyone says. If your website is there to make money for you, money will muddy the waters. It will change your attitude towards the stuff that you're reading.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'll normally look at, of course, films and stuff like that, but you see that, I think, with a lot of bigger companies in the States, where it's kind of, they'll promote these grand kind of gift baskets that they got from, the studio, and then they'll talk about the movie, and I agree completely that you kind of wonder, well, how much can you actually say if you didn't?
Yeah, I mean, you look at some. I don't want to name names, and I certainly don't want to be, seen as, here he goes again. But you look at some big magazines, and they review films, and you then watch that film, and you go, really? And you wonder, is that to get the advertising company from the actual production studio, or is it even stuff like, getting the exclusive, the first news item, the first interview, the first actual review of the film? Are you doing this just to basically keep ahead of everyone else and make some money, or are you actually doing it because you enjoy what you do? And I seriously question a lot of things when I watch films or read books. It's weird. You've got your Stephen Kings and your Robert McCammons and all that, and your Joe Hills, And I get personal taste comes into it, and there is a line on a graph where personal taste stays above that. Is it good or is it not bad, or if is it bad line, and it will cross it. But then there's a subsection of authors. So I'm not going to name names here, but I call the untouchables, and they're the ones that are about to break through into that sort of Stephen King, Joe Hill sort of level of popularity and sales. And there are so many people who review them, their books, and they're untouchable. It's 5-star, A-star reviews over and over and over again. And yet there's a small group of us in the reviewing community who've read them and go, it's crap. It's as though they've got that one great book, and then now going through the drawer at the, at the bottom drawer of their office desk of ideas that basically didn't take off. Shit, I need to get another book written quickly. Right, I'll just pump this one through, and there you go. And it's this like, they want to ride the tails. So if this person becomes really famous and really big, they've shown that they've been a fan and a supporter of them right from the beginning. We'll get the exclusive. We'll get the first review of your book and all that. And it's maybe I'm being a cynic. I don't know, because I'm a natural born cynic. I always look through everything, but it's getting quite depressing now. And I think it's because the genre is so small. There's so little money for the authors themselves.
Yeah.
There's so little exposure for the people on our end of the actual coin, our side of the coin, that everyone's fighting for that little exclusive, that little bit of, look at me, I've got this, and it gets quite tiring and quite pathetic, to be honest.
No, I could see that completely, and I know it kind of brings up an interesting point of authors because there is that difference, at least in the States. I know I've heard you talk about it with authors like Stephen King, where in the States he is the horror writer type of thing, and that it's because he relates to the small town America so well. There's kind of all these elements, and I remember hearing you talk about Stephen King of that, like there's this you recognize that he is a talented writer, but it just in the UK it doesn't hit the same way that he hits over here. But then he's also kind of, because of his fan base, you can't necessarily, in the same way certain filmmakers are, you can't criticize a Stephen King book, even if it's not good.
Yeah, I mean, I'll never deny that he's a fantastic writer. If it wasn't for him, the genre wouldn't be where it is. But for me, his writing just doesn't speak to me. It's like the Beatles, I don't like the Beatles. If the Beatles come on the radio, I'll switch channels, but I'll never deny that they're fantastic musicians. They have written some fantastic songs. It's a subject that I'm fascinated by. Probably not the right word. I call it tribalism. I would love to go back to university to study why you think this is amazing and I hate it.
Oh, yeah.
Things like why you say find this, this woman is exceedingly attractive, and every time you see her, your heart melts, and I look at her and go, really? I would love to understand the whole psychological process, because I think it's fascinating. Even you go back to the days, there was like, I'd love to have seen it, we probably do see it on the internet these days, but the whole thing, Beatles versus Stones.
Yeah.
Over the UK, it was, what was it? Take That versus Boyzone.
Okay.
There was the letters to, like magazines and all that saying, oh, Take That fans are stupid and idiots and all this stuff. It was fantastic to watch. And I would love to know what drives us and what splits us. And at what point do we become, we agree on something. I would love to go back and study that, but that's a long, long way off.
Yeah. No, that is really fascinating. I think when I was coming up, because I think when I was in elementary, or probably later than that, but middle school, high school, or whatever, the big ones were, people arguing over, I think it was the rise of the boy bands or the girl groups or whatever. So it was like NSYNC versus Backstreet Boys for certain groups.
I mean, when you look at it, it's the most stupid thing to actually argue and fight about, but every generation does it, and there has to be a reason why we're like that.
Yeah. No, exactly. So that, kind of. So with all that, let me go to my notes a little bit, but so I know that has kind of gotten you into what the social media. I don't even know if you want to call them battles, if you want to call them, I don't know if they're debates. They're probably not debates with certain types of people because they're not really willing to listen. But you are kind of as I spoke before, an advocate for reviewers, and you've always been very supportive, and you've been kind of really held your ground with a lot of stuff, because I think, especially in, while people before it seemed like they were, as you were saying, fighting over what band is better, now it's like you have this fan base online that if you say anything towards the thing they like, it becomes hostile in a way where, they make fake accounts where they harass, where they do all this stuff. And I kind of really like to hear about it from your take, because you're, very much in it in terms of, kind of battling for these independent reviewers and these other people.
My biggest problem is I'm sort of your cliched, angry, red-headed Scotsman, and I cannot stand any form of injustice. Even the silly, even at work, I get annoyed. I see one person who's doing, 20% of the work that everyone else is doing. That annoys the crap out of me, because I'm all about fairness, and I hate seeing things that are unfair. And when you see these offers, and this is going to sound like I'm a real arsehole, and I'm not. It's just, it's the passion in me coming out, and if people think I'm an arsehole, then that's fine. I'm an arsehole. It doesn't matter. I don't care. But ever since I call it, like, I don't know if you must have it in America, the X Factor, or like America's Got Talent. This obsession where you can get instant fame for the minimum amount of talent or the minimum amount of work.
Yeah.
And it's this feeling that every horror offer, well, not every offer, the ones that kick off and the ones that attack these reviewers, it's like, they almost like feel as though, how dare you criticise anything that I do? And it's like, look, not everyone should write that. There's people, I've been sent manuscripts by authors who shouldn't be allowed to write a shopping list, let alone a bloody novel. And nobody tells them this. This is, it's like, I would love to be the editor that actually goes up to even Stephen King and say, look, mate, you need to cut 500 words from this story. You can imagine them typically dressed up in like a suit of armour with Kevlar body plates on the top, because I don't even think he would take it that well.
Yeah.
And when you see them attacking, if you send your book out for an honest review and you get an honest review, then you just have to take that review on the chin and deal with it. Not everyone's going to like this stuff. I'll keep going back to Stephen King, but every single one of his books has got a range of reviews from 5 stars to 1 star. It's just the nature, as I said, people like things, people don't. It's the nature of humanity, and if you can't handle that, then you shouldn't be writing. And you certainly shouldn't be sending your books out in a public forum. Now, to attack a reviewer, it's just, oh my God. I've given people my address because, they say, I'm going to do this to this reviewer. I says, well, here's my address because I think your book's shit as well. Come and deal with me.
Yeah.
And, as with all these internet bullies, they're a bunch of chickens. They'll never actually do anything like that. A few years ago, there was a female reviewer who stays a couple of miles up the road from me, whatever you want to call it. Okay. And we both reviewed this book, both ripped it to parts. And he actually drove all the way up from England and attacked her at work with a bottle of wine. Now, he actually, I think, physically had to drive past the street up to my house. And my address is on the website. And he knew about my review, but oh no, he's not going to come near me because, I'm a big angry Scotsman. I'm not some small, some small female. I mean, that's just, angers me. And it's the self-importance of these people. Just deal with it. Reviews are not for authors or publishers; they're for the readers.
Yeah.
And yes, you get hatchet jobs, but you can tell the difference between a proper review and a hatchet job. Anyone with an ounce of intelligence can understand that. I mean, there was a reviewer an author who was getting annoyed because I think they got a 1-star review, and the reviewer mentioned something about, oh god, it's a gay black lead character. Now, the people who agree with that reviewer would never buy that book anyway, and if they did buy that book, they're probably going to leave another 1-star review, because that's the nature of, these inbred people that they are.
Yeah.
So knowing that review means nothing. No one's going to pay any attention to it. And if anything, the people who are looking for books that contain a character like that, they're going to read that 1-star review and go, oh, that's the only reason why it's got a 1-star review. They've never actually mentioned the actual writing. They're going to hit the look inside thing on Amazon, read it, and probably buy that book. So rather than taking to social media to rip apart something which isn't a review, it's just an opinion of, an idiot.
Yeah.
Just write it out. Life has a way of balancing out.
Yeah, I mean, that's very interesting, and it's one of those things that since we follow each other on social media, and I always see these big debates, but since I'm never in the book world, I guess I'm always, the person looking in the window at at some chaos that's happening next of, and it's mostly, as you mentioned, it's women reviewers that are the ones being targeted. It doesn't ever seem like they're, these authors or these fans or whoever, they're targeting men for the most part. That I've
it's a perceived notion that they're weaker than us. They're an easy target. I had a real bad attack against me. God, I can't even remember how many years ago it was. I gave a book, in my opinion, unjustified. I think it was 2-star review, and it was bad. And the author got all their fans into a frenzy, and that was in the days where if you review on Amazon, your Amazon reviewer ranking meant something.
Yeah.
Like if you're in the top 100, you actually got invited to review some pretty cool stuff. I got, I got sent one of those Roomba vacuum cleaners.
Oh wow.
Before, when they were just coming out. It was, I got a pair of bicycle lights for, I think they were like £200, free of charge to review. Because now, I would never take books or anything like that, but, I thought, I'll use Amazon reviewer ranking to get some cool free stuff. And they went through and downvoted every single one of my, like, 600 reviews out of that time on Amazon.
Oh, wow.
And that dropped my reviewer ranking from something like, I was in the top 100 down to top 50,000. And, constant links to porn sites on the website in the comments section, and just constant spam emails, attack, and it was horrible. Because there's nothing you could physically do to I emailed Amazon and says, oh, come on, this happened in the space of 2 days, 1,200 downvotes. That's not natural. That's obviously an attack, but they wouldn't do anything.
Yeah.
And it got to the stage where the publisher actually pulled the book from sale until the author got their fans to, calm the hell down and stop doing that. And it was horrible. You feel lost, you feel alone, you feel like there's nothing you can do, that everything that you worked for is getting slowly but surely hammered away from you. So yeah, it's horrible. But they keep doing it and they don't, they just don't get it. And what's worse, I think, is it's not the authors attacking other authors, it's reviewers having a go at other reviewers, and this constant backbiting. And I'll admit, I have been drawn into this myself on a good few occasions. There's a huge one going around at the moment, and it's awful to watch. Friendships from on my side have been lost. There's authors that I have been lifelong friends with on my sort of online social career who've unfriended me on Twitter and whatnot because of this. But the flip side is there's people who I thought absolutely despised me are now actually chatting to me, and we all realise that we've all been kind of played in one big puppet bastard on there, the sort of person that actually has a go at other female reviewers because they happen to show a bit of cleavage on their Instagram videos when they're, pictures when they're, showing books and all that. I mean, it's just like, how dare anyone criticise another reviewer for the pictures. You know, it's like, oh, is it body shaming? It probably is body shaming, doing stuff like that. It's just like, come on. But you know what? If you don't like me, if you don't like my big gobby mouth that basically I should probably learn to shut up every once in a while, then you know it bothers me for a bit. Then I think, you know what, that there's more to life than this, isn't there?
Yeah. No, so that actually kind of gets into we'll talk about the workings, I guess the workings of the site and kind of all of the logistics that happen in a bit. But I know because of this, a lot of people, you know, there's this mentality, I think, when you're first starting out and stuff, and I know I had it at some point where, you know, it's like that has to be your entire focus. If you're, you know, want to write horror movies, whatever, that's all you watch, that's all you do. And, you know, you're very much about, you know, I know you take your dog on a walk and you basically tune out. And I remember that I, you know, relating to seeing that, because it's something that I do the same, where I either take my dog on a long walk or even go on long walks at least once a day or something, just to decompress. And it is kind of that element that, you know, you can love the genre, you can kind of dedicate your life to it, but you also need to be able to detach yourself.
Oh yeah, you have to think of yourself first. I mean, I've burnt myself out so many times, and to be honest, I'm probably at the point where I'm getting burnt out again, because it does. And a lot of it stems from having anxiety, and you think you're doing the right thing. Like, if I'm off on a Sunday, it's the only day that I've got off with the family, so I try and do nothing on the site, not even answer emails, just have a complete day away. But then you feel guilty and stressed out, because when you open up your email the next day and you see there's God knows how many emails that you've not answered, so you think, oh, I've not got enough time to do this, and it builds up, but you have to just boom, it's like, you know, I've deleted all messengers and DM thingies from my phone. So when I'm on the bus to and from work, all I can do is either read a book or watch YouTube videos or something, and listen to music or something like that, just completely chill out. And it's the same when I go walking with the dog. Everything's switched off on the phone, apart from, you know, 4 or 5 phone numbers that I actually need to have in cases of, you know, sort of family emergency. Other than that, I'm completely uncontactable on the phone unless I actually take the phone out and switch it on and muck about with it. And you need to do that, because if you don't, you just, it's too much. It's you know, it's the modern life. It's a digital world. You're never you know, you're never away from anything or anyone. It's like I had an argument with my manager at work because he wanted my mobile number, and I says, you have my house number, that's all you need. No, I need your mobile number. He says, no, you don't. According to our terms of contract, you only need one number to contact me on. I'm not Batman. I don't need to be contacted 24 hours a day. I don't, because I had it with a previous manager, you know, like 2 texts a day, every day. Can you come in early? Can you do this? And it's I look at it as a form of sort of passive aggressive bullying, and I told him, you're not getting it. And he tried to get someone else to give it to me, and I says, if you do that again, I'll be taking you upstairs to HR, because you're just not getting it. You have my house number. If I'm asleep, you can leave a message and I'll answer it when I get up. So, and it's the same, you know, it's just, to me, social media and just modern life, it's the same thing. You need to find ways to completely and utterly detox yourself, even if it's once a week or an hour a day. You need your own sort of version of an isolation tank. Otherwise, you just drive yourself crazy.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's interesting, I don't know, seeing some of these, because, you know, that having a child and all that for myself too, it's interesting seeing a lot these other independent companies that are doing this, and they're just on. It's like they're posting constantly, and you know it's working for them in that way. But there's that part for me of seeing it and be like, can you even sustain that? But I guess, you know, because they're younger or because whatever. But it's like from 8 a.m. to 3 a.m. it seems like they're posting constantly, or they're doing something or something or another.
Yeah, I don't know, did you ever watch The League, that American comedy sitcom about the fantasy football league in America? There was a character in it who always had, was it Stinker Tinker time, where he tinkered with his lineup when he was on the toilet. Well, a lot of my social media time is Stinker Tinker time. It's, it's like, if I'm downstairs, I mean, you always do when you're sort of flicking through while you're watching something. Like today, all I've done is basically sit and watch reruns of Bones and occasionally skim through Twitter and Facebook, but it's a day where you kind of need that. You kind of need to just take your time back.
Yeah. I agree. So getting into it, when people are first starting out, and if they want to talk about horror, if they want to kind of go into this field, and do this as, for whatever extent or purpose, there's always kind of this, okay, well, just make a site, and then start posting your reviews, and it's, it's the same mentality that I think a lot of filmmakers will get, that is helpful in a sense, and I get the message behind it, but it doesn't feel like it's fully, for me, I don't know, it's a little bit detached from kind of how it works, I guess, in my opinion, where they're like, just make a movie and then you'll be fine, which, is, that'd be wonderful, but there's all these other elements to it. So I'd love to kind of hear about these inner workings, because especially, working with you over the years, and then also seeing that, at least from the film portion of it, of going through these PR companies, of going through kind of all these loops and all these, especially we were just talking prior about how festivals are now, and they're switched to kind of virtual because of COVID, but going into, okay, well, now all these new bars are being or I don't even know if we want to call them bars, but these new signs and new detours are being raised of like getting to review the content or having these interviews or whatever. This whole process is being changed, really, and it's kind of a complicated one.
Yeah, I mean, it's weird. I've always found the film side a lot harder to make any sort of leeway and progress with than the book side. I don't know if it's because there's so many different people involved once the film is finished and getting sort of sent out to people, because you've got the production company, you've got different PR companies, you've got this and this, and actually nailing the person down who's responsible. I mean, like last year for the last Fright Fest thing that we're supposed to be covering, we got the list of the films. I emailed them all back saying, these are the ones we're interested in, and I think we heard back from one or two of them. Because even there, through the Fright Fest, it wasn't done through Fright Fest, which it normally would be when it's an actual live physical event where people going to it. It was done through God knows how many different people who were then reading one email that you sent back to the main contact, and they were cherry picking from that. And I wish I could get a proper handle on it. I really do, because we get some good films in, and we get some big name films in, but it's I don't know how to make that consistent, that we're not getting. I mean, it's an awful thing to say, and it's not the lower end, but it's certainly the lower end in scale of budget and sort of presence for the films. Because to be honest, a lot of the some of the smaller budget films that I've watched this year have been absolutely brilliant.
Yeah.
You look at like Uncle Peckerhead. That by rights that should have been an absolute disaster of a film.
Yeah.
It was made for like £2.50. On the back of written on the back of a cigarette packet idea sort of thing. But it turned out to be a very enjoyable film, way better than you would ever have thought it would have been. Even that, whenever I actually chatted about it, I remember we talked about an email that Get Duped.
Yeah. Yeah, we
I was absolutely pissing myself with laughter at that film, and by rights, that film should have been absolutely shocking. But for some reason, it worked. Yeah. And yet, a lot of these big budget films that I've watched this year, it's just like, is that it? I'm really not interested in it. So, I mean, it's not so much about. Maybe it's the ego talking, wanting to get into these big films and be able to cover them from the start and get an early sort of review of the film before it's released or as it's released sort of thing, and be part of that initial buzz. Getting a quote on a film poster is brilliant. I think that's 6 or 7 times now over the course of the 12, 13 years I've been doing this. I've had a pull quote on a poster. Oh. Never been for a massive film, but just seeing it, it's a big buzz, and it's like an affirmation, like, oh my God, people are actually listening to and caring about what we say on the site. Yeah. About that, like I've been sort of pulling out feelers for that new Vince Vaughn film, Freaky.
Oh yeah, it looks good.
Because that does look very interesting. Yeah. That does look kind of funny, but is it one of these ones where the trailer is basically the best part of the film? But hopefully not. So I've been putting out feelers of that. I think it was the writing producer put a tweet out today, so I commented on that, saying if there's anything we can do to help promote the film, just let us know, and they responded to that. So fingers crossed something will come out of that. And the new film, Adam Sandler film. Have you seen the trailer for that?
Yeah, I watched it. I was kind of half asleep when I watched it, but I think I
really don't quite know what to make of that. It's either going to be the funniest film ever or the worst film ever. Now, I'm sure I read an interview with him a couple of months back where he says if he didn't win an Oscar this year, he was going to make the worst film ever made, just as a 2 fingers up to everybody. And is this that film? I don't know. Yeah. I mean, it's basically he's taking the little Nicky character, isn't he, and sticking it into another film.
Yeah. From what I can tell, it's like not a hall monitor, but a guy that is like a dude.
A Halloween monitor, yeah.
And the
with a flask on on a rope. I don't quite get it, but to get a pull quote on one of those 2 films for the production would just be amazing, absolutely amazing. But it's hard. It's hard on the film side, but I wish I knew how to actually just break out at the next level. I also do think that, going back to what we said previously, I do think a lot of places don't particularly like our brutal honesty. Yeah. Like that, was it Craiota film? That trailer looked amazing, and it was terrible. And I think people think, okay, and even distribution companies, while they haven't have no actual connect to the film, that they're paid to promote it, and I'm sure they have to have an audit where from the actual film company saying we sent this film out to 20 reviewers and half of them thought it was an absolute pile of nonsense. They've got to look for their business, and I'm assuming they wouldn't want to constantly deal with sites like us who rubbish a lot of films. It's not rubbish a lot of films, who don't like them, and and everybody knows there's a lot of nonsense out there, and there's no point sugarcoating it. And I think that's the first rule and the first sort of thing that you have to live by if you're starting out a review site is you have to be honest. You have to be honest to your tastes. You have to ignore any notion about getting anywhere by sooking up to people and sugarcoating things for them, because if people watch or read a book based on your review and you're knocking it up a couple of stars or you're saying it's brilliant when it's not, they're never going to come back to the site. They're going to think, what is this guy on about? Yeah. I think maybe, certainly at the start when you're not getting screen readers or anything. Just review the films that you enjoy. So you can practice your style of writing, your style of delivery, and sort of hone your craft.
Yeah.
And then that in itself, as you build up your sort of social media presence and people start taking notice and people start coming to the site, you can then say, this is my style of reviewing. These are the sort of films I like, and contact the PR people. I mean, I actually can't even remember how I got the first review. Where the first contact, how that came about to review a film. I can't even remember what the first proper actual film that was sent into review was. It's just one of these things. It happens by. If you're reviewing films, people will notice. It's 7 degrees of Kevin Bacon is going to call Stephen Bacon, but that's someone completely different. Yeah, people will notice.
Separation.
And if you're honest and you're not basically bullshitting, people will take notice of you. It'll take time, but it'll come.
Yeah. No, I agree completely, and I think there is kind of that understanding of. There's this mentality sometimes, I think, with online community where it's more where everybody's a critic, or I mean, that's always been a line that has been said. But who was it? Sadie, I can't think of her. Who does Bookworms?
Sadie.
Yeah, she was talking about for reviewers, like if you don't, there's that acknowledgement of that this is of even using words like I feel, or because it is a very subjective art form, I guess, in its way, and it's a subjective writing. I think sometimes there are reviewers, especially that are either just starting out, or I mean there are some that have been doing it for a long time that write everything as fact almost, and I think that's where it gets the bad rap, where But I agree completely about, making sure and, proving that you have your voice. This is what you like and this is what you don't like, but that it is on yourself that, this is my opinion, and I'm not declaring that it is all the end all be all.
Yeah, I mean, I have a weird relationship with phrases like I feel, I us, because my background is from, before I had this night shift job, is scientific writing, and when I see I in this, it triggers so many telling off from university professors, and I don't like it. So I personally I try to write my reviews where I don't use I feel. I get around that somehow without stating that this is a fact. It's just one of these weird things, like the old the one that really gets me, especially with a review site, is when you get something in and you're like an interview or something, and book titles and film titles are all in caps locks. Oh god, the number of times I've almost thrown the computer out the window when I see it, and that all comes from my years of having to write scientific papers and dissertations. It's the old standard scientific referencing way. It's italics with only the first letter of the important words capitalized, and it's weird. I personally I don't like I love and I feel. But that's just me, and I would never ever criticize another reviewer for using it, and I would have never once got anyone who writes for the site to go go and rewrite that. It annoys me because it's their style. It's the way they write. It's me with this weird hang up that's been hammered into me for 15, 20 years of working in the scientific field.
No, but I think what you even said though that makes perfect sense is that you get around to it, that it is I guess subjective in its way, which is great. But no, I would love to hear a little bit more about. Well, I guess going back again, but that was actually something that we on Bloodhound Pix have faced, or that I've seen at least. We've had pretty good, thanks to your help and everything. We've had pretty good relationships with these whatever PR companies, or that we at least up until this point, and that's been one of those things where I've seen for other people where it's like, okay, well, you'll get the movie, but if you do the trailer, if you post the trailer first and do a spotlight piece, and then we'll talk about giving you a screener, or then we'll talk about, but on top of that, you need to do an interview as well, and so there's kind of all these catches that are being thrown about it.
Yeah, I don't like jumping through hoops, and I sometimes when I see that, I just delete the email because I just think, do you want me to do this film?
Yeah.
Or do you basically want me to be an unpaid advertising stream for your film? And I don't like it. Because, none of them understand how much effort goes into writing and doing an interview. You think it's, half a dozen questions, 10 questions, that will take you 10 minutes. It doesn't. And it's also this weird thing is how can you interview someone if you haven't seen the film?
Yeah.
I've had this so many times. We want you to interview the director of the film about the film. I need to watch the film. Oh no, we need you to do the interview first. It's like, well, okay. Other than the trailer and the title of the film, what am I going to talk about?
Yeah.
It's endemic throughout the whole sort of spectrum of reviewing. I do think we are seen as unpaid interns who are there to basically do the bidding and jump and dance whenever we're told, and I do think we are deeply undervalued by so many people. Don't get me wrong, there's some fantastic publicists out there. It's like the people at Titan Publishing in the UK. They are utterly amazing, and they will do anything for you. And a lot of the small UK presses like Black Shucks and Sinister Horror Company and people like that are fantastic, and they become more friends than people that you deal with, and the sort of friends that understand. I've given bad reviews to books from all three of them, Titans, Sinister, and Black Shuck. And they respect that, and they don't go, next time I see him at a convention, I'm just going to turn the other way. Because they realise they realise, because they're professional, and they realise that our friendship isn't going to sully the water, and they wouldn't want that. They want honesty, and that's to find people like that in any sort of form of reviewing or for anything is brilliant, and it needs more people like that who understand that we're doing our job, they're doing their job, and we won't always agree on everything. And sometimes they have to publish or release films that they know themselves aren't that very good, but the contract's been signed and written and delivered, so they have to do it. And you just have to all get along. Next time, if we ever have another convention, I know shakes and hands, smiles all around when we all finally get to meet again, whenever that is. Even though I have given negative reviews to stuff that they've done, but that's just life. And
yeah, I mean that's very truthful. And I think talking about conventions and then going into the elephant of the room. So never mind, my question isn't too positive, but talking about kind of has everything of 2020 really impacted your portion of it, which I know it's mostly online, it's mostly when you've been receiving, but you haven't been able to go to the conventions, and then also has it really changed the playing field a little bit with COVID and with the Black Lives Matter movement and everything?
It's been a for us. I don't think it's really impacted us that much, other in terms of sort of reconnecting and re-cementing sort of relationships with the PR side and authors that always happens at conventions. But certainly for authors, it's been horrible because these conventions, buying them to sell books, and certainly to sell books to people who would never have purchased the books before. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know, like I was supposed to be doing a number of panels at the Chimera Festival here in Edinburgh, and the idea of that is that I try and have a couple of big names to draw in the people, and then bring in some local authors or smaller authors from the UK to basically help get the exposure. And they try and pair them up with writers who wrote in similar themes or similar ideas and topics and all that. And there was always the book clear. They had the book hall, the selling hall, where you could go and buy the books. And they would bring in one of the local bookshops, and they have a whole floor dedicated to selling books from all the people that are appearing at the festival. And that didn't happen. And it's the same, conventions are almost as much as selling books. I mean, I know one publisher refuses to pay the extortionate table fees at one convention, so he brings he brings his car with a boot filled up with books, and he goes, if I say, "Oh, I like the sound of that book," well, I've got one in my car, and he'll take the boot of the car and sell the books there, which I think it's fun. It's a gonzo way of doing it, because sometimes the table charges are like, really? Okay, yeah, that's a hell of a lot of books we've got to sell to a small audience over the course of 2 days. So, yeah. But for the site, what certainly, COVID really, I don't think has affected us that much. Other than a lot of books, you work your butt off to get reviews and interviews done for a book, and there's been a lot of books that have been pushed back a couple of months because of it, because of delays with the printer and all that. So other than that, it's more of a sort of admin side rather than actually having an effect on us. But certainly personally, the whole sort of Black Lives Matter thing has made me think. Certainly about even little things like the wording on the site. Like one of the questions on that 5 minutes with the interview was talking about sort of the blogger horror tribe, and it's like I didn't actually realise that from a pure, I just had no idea that the word tribe could be seen as offensive to certain people, because it's just something I'd never thought about. It's like the horror blogger tribe. To me, it just felt like a small community.
Yeah.
And I've actually deleted that question. There's been quite a few things I had no idea, and it's made me look at how I approach this thing. It's made me a better person. I mean, there was never any maliciousness involved in it at all. It was just ignorance on my part, not understanding that certain phrases and, well, quite innocuous phrases on the surface actually had so many ramifications that ran so much deeper under the surface. So, yeah, that's certainly, it's had a way I've sort of put myself out there on the site. And has it made me sort of search out authors from different backgrounds and all that? Probably not, because it's something I've always strived to do. I've always strived to be as diverse as I can and be as open as I can on the site to anyone and everyone that wants to write. But it can be hard sort of navigating that minefield. It's hard getting contacts with people that aren't within your sort of circle of contacts and groups and people that you chat to. So while it's a great thing striving for diversity, and a lot of people get angry that people aren't pushing that on their site, it can be quite difficult. I put out numerous calls for authors from different backgrounds because we wanted to push it on the site, and you get nothing. You got very little in back. Last year we did the sort of Gay Pride Month on the site, and even that in itself, it was very hard getting anybody to sign up for it or pay any attention to it, and I got a lot of flack from it, and not from the people that you were thinking for. I got a lot of flack from within that community itself for doing it, which kind of sullied what I did. I was doing, it was the whole point of it was, we have Women in Horror Month, so this was, why can't we have everything else? Other things, the Black Lives Matter in Horror Month. I mean, in an ideal world, these months wouldn't exist because we wouldn't need them because it would be a level playing field. And I got so much abuse from certain quarters that I didn't do it again this year. I thought I'm not putting myself through that because my biggest problem is I take everything so personally.
Yeah.
I don't let things just wash off the back. It sits there and eats away at me for days and months. And I think you just have to be open to anyone and everyone. And if you're a bigot of any sense of the word, you have no business doing this. I think that's I mean, don't get me wrong, I can't wait for this year to be over. It's been... I think, even getting to these conventions is... It's sapped my will to do the website because they do. You go there and you see the people that you speak to all year online, and you have a beer, you have a drink, you have a sing song along at the end of the night. You moan because they shut the bar too early. You have a cuddle, and it rejuvenates you, and that's almost a year since I've met up with anyone who wasn't either walking their dog or a part of the family.
Yeah.
I think that's been the biggest sort of impact of this year is that the batteries just feel as though they're close to depletion and they need a wee sort of social boost, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. No, I get that entirely. And of course, so kind of leaving more on a positive note because I know I don't want to keep you around too long. So you could do, your more important stuff, but what I guess is kind of I'll ask, of course, how can people find you, all of that, but first, what is there anything you're planning for the future with Ginger Nuts or yourself, and have you yourself even thought about writing fiction instead of about it?
Sorry for the writing fiction, no. I have no illusions of grandeur. No, I know my limits, and my limits are not right. I certainly go nowhere near writing fiction. I'm one of these people that believe you're born with a germ of a gift, and it has to be there for you to hone it. Like I would never be a football player. I was a rugby player because of the type of person that I am. I'll probably make a good American football player because that is just rugby with, protection and, a helmet.
Yeah.
Give me the ball and I'll run straight up that line and take out as many people as I can. The daintiness of playing football, soccer, or, anything that requires you to dodge about like a ballerina on a sports field, that's not me, and it would never be me. And it's the same with writing. It's not there. I wrote one story, but that was this book that came out years ago that was a whole series of them, how to write horror, how to write science fiction, and the whole book was just filled with stock phrases. Okay. Like one of them, and I'll never forget this phrase, I think I actually want it put on my headstone, is the axe penetrated her deeper than any man ever could. And it was filled with things like this, and I wrote a whole story of basically just taking these stock phrases and linking them. It was utterly atrocious, but it apparently went down really well, and it's one of these things. I lost it when an old computer crashed, and I wish I could find it again. I wish I could get it up on the website, but other than that, no chance. Okay. Nope. I'll never be a writer, and I have no willingness to ever even think about trying that again. As for the site, it's like everything I do in life. I wing it. Ideas spring up, at the middle of the night when you're trying to sleep. And I think what we are going to do is George Daniel Lee, who over the years has done these things called like 13 for Halloween, okay, where you look at 13 linked things. So I think, oh God, it's completely slipped my mind. I think we're going to look at Alien. Oh, okay. No, we're not. Come on, think. I think it's something to do with Clive. This is terrible. I should remember because I was talking to him about it a couple of days ago. But this is my brain is like this. Yeah, he's planning on doing a new 13 for. So super secret. We'll reveal it all when we finally I can remember what it is.
Oh yeah.
But we'll just plod along, and some new ideas will spring up. Hopefully there'll be some more slightly better film festivals kicking off where we can get some decent coverage on. Just plodding along. No big plans for the site. Other than that, just keep on doing what we're doing, because I think what we do is really good, and I think there's a good audience for it, and certainly there's a lot of love out there for us. So we just keep going and striving to be who we are without compromising it.
No, I think that's great, and as I've hinted at and said throughout this, I mean, we at Bloodhound Pix owe a ton to you mainly, but Ginger Nuts of Horror, just because you kind of gave us the chance to work our weird type of reviewing that we decided to do, and then really have been supportive. So we're really glad to have you around and be a part of your community.
I love that sort of I call it the couch potato type reviewing. There was a SFX magazine in there that had a column called Couch Potato, and it was basically a bunch of them getting drunk and watching like old episodes of Doctor Who. It wasn't even a review; it was just them getting drunk and talking about it.
Yeah.
I call this. I just love that, the fact that we're basically getting 3 reviews in one, with a nice bit of banter in between you. It's absolutely brilliant. And that's one of the joys of doing the site, is seeing people like you who join up the site, and then you can move on, and you get opportunities that have come up from being on the site, like Kit Power. It fills my heart with so much joy that he got that book about Tommy from PS Publishing in the UK. He got the contract from that basically because they read his My Life in Horror column on the site, and stuff like that. When I see that happening too, I mean, I don't call them a team; they're a family,
Yeah.
I feel like the old granddad on the rocking chair at Christmas time, looking back at all the successes that everyone in the family's had, and that's what makes doing the site, over all the nonsense that happens over the year, when you see people getting success and moving up the ladder in their own sort of personal way, that makes running the site worth all the hassle that you go through.
Can't think of a better way to kind of end this whole interview. But I guess before we take off, we say our goodbyes. How can people reach you?
Well, the website's Google Ginger Nuts of Horror. It's https://www.gingernutsofhorror.com. I honestly cannot remember my Twitter handle. I think it's at GingerGN of Horror or something like that. You'll see me. Yeah. Just look for a big pumpkin on a tartan background. I really should know my own Twitter handle. Facebook. I'm on Facebook, but I'm not really on Facebook, because Facebook's just it's a dead platform. But I'm down as Jim Mcleod, not Jim G. Mcleod. That's my old account, which I now can't get access to because I forgot my password, and Facebook won't let me sign back up onto it. So just Jim Mcleod on Facebook. There is a Ginger Nuts Horror Facebook business page, but again, it's Facebook. Unless I'm pumping in hundreds of dollars a month into that, then nobody actually pays in. Nobody can see it. So look for Twitter. You'll easily find me on Twitter. Email if you need to contact me is jimmcleod@gingernutsofhorror.com. It's just Ginger Nuts. If you Google Ginger Nuts of Horror, you'll find me one way or another. Email address is all over the website if you're looking for it.
Okay. Yeah, no, that's great. And as I said, it's been a real pleasure chatting with you, Jim, and thank you for joining us.
Bloodhound Pix podcast is part of the Morbidly Beautiful podcast network. Produced by Josh Lee, Craig Drum, and Kyle Hintz. Music by Raymond Seed. Editing by Kyle Hintz.